Hello and welcome to the e-commerce World Week. This is the summer edition. Once again, thank you everyone for joining us today. Our focus of today's session is actually the presentation and preview of the European e-commerce report. As I mentioned, we haven't published yet our report, so these are some sneak peek from the future report that will be published in the month of July 2021. And we're really looking forward to publish the report and have you reading it. You will find the link anyway in your webinar information, and the report is free to retailers and brands. We will send you the presentation as well, and please feel free to use our graphs, but again, make sure to download the full report. Before going into some details, I would like to introduce the guests of today's session. So welcome, Thomas and Ejaz. Will be great if both of you can tell something about yourself, your role, and your company. So Ejaz, if you want to start first.
Yes, hi, I'm Ijaz from Amplience. I look after Northern Europe for Amplience. What Amplience does is we, enable our customers, give them the freedom to do more when it comes to content creation, to experience management. Often the challenges with growing the online business is about creating a greater experience, more targeted, more personalized, doing it targeted to the right device, the right market, the right time. The challenge with that is being able to produce content at scale with the existing resources, providing teams to do more with their time. And that's really where Amplience can help with the automation and creation of that content.
Okay, thanks, Ejaz. We're really looking forward to hear your insights about the e-commerce in Europe. So, Thomas, what about you?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, my name is Thomas Berger, working for Asendia. Asendia actually is a joint venture from La Poste in France and Swiss Post, founded approximately 10 years ago. Next year, we have our anniversary and birthday. Asendia is founded to become a global leader in the cross-border e-commerce delivery. So as you can imagine, in the last 2 years especially, we had interesting times. A lot of our customers started growing internationally with the e-commerce business. And what we actually do is we are managing the end-to-end delivery for shops of all sizes across all borders, which not only includes the pure physical moving of goods, it's all around customs questions, duty questions. Cross-border e-commerce has a lot of aspects that are more complicated than when you stay within your borders, country borders. And we are the, let's say, facilitator for brands and retailers out there to grow internationally.
Okay, great. Thanks. Again, looking forward to hear your insights as well. And we now can proceed with the presentation. So first of all, Europe is a market of huge contrast. It includes well-established as well as emerging e-commerce region. Europe offers expansion opportunity as well as the chance to practice in action due to the difference in regions. Maturity of markets and the habits of consumers vary hugely across the region, so it is essential to understand the complexities and peculiarity of each market. As we can see from the graph, Western Europe and Northern Europe have the highest internet usage and e-shoppers percentage, while Southern Europe shows a high internet usage but a quite low e-shoppers. Eastern Europe has a 79% internet usage and shows only a 47% of e-shoppers. Thomas, how do you see the commerce market in Europe, so as the whole region?
As a whole region in Europe, let's say we're living in a paradise when it comes to cross-border international e-commerce. Europe is, let's say, living in harmony when it comes to cross-border complexity in the means of taxes, duty, and so forth. So this is for retailers a huge opportunity to grow very, very quickly. And we have seen this in the last couple of months, actually, the last 2 years, when people were used to more e-shopping, that a lot of retailers out there try to use this option for their own business to grow, especially because the competition in different countries and regions is very different for certain types of goods and certain types of retailers. And therefore, let's say being a European retailer and trying to expand European-wide is currently the best option to do.
Okay, thanks. And what do you see as the main characteristics in the e-commerce market in Europe?
Well, I think similarly, the opportunity to grow across Europe is a huge one, which is still not being made the most of just yet. I think a lot of retailers are still very focused around the locales around them, but there is great opportunity to reach out. Often what the constraints are the ability to become a lot more targeted, localize the experience, and create much more sort of targeted types of approaches to the new regions they need to break into. And I think that is often a challenge for certain organizations thinking about how much effort is involved, not just from, as Thomas said, the logistical side of delivering, but also how do you go and sort of break open those markets from a marketing perspective.
Okay, thank you. If we move to the next slide, we are actually in the Western Europe region. This region dominates the European e-commerce sector, mostly because it includes some of the most advanced industrialized countries in the world of e-commerce. When looking at country-by-country basis, the most preferred delivery options for Belgium are delivery, followed by home delivery, followed by post office, and collect from a distribution point. Thomas, what are the main characteristics you see in Western Europe when it comes to delivery?
The interesting thing, in fact, is you can summarize for Western Europe, but still also in Western Europe, the favors are quite different from country to country. Just to referring to the example you have here with Belgium, there's let's say one major reason for these numbers in 2020 in Belgium, because Belgium went, especially Belgium, in a very harsh lockdown. So basically, when you look at the numbers and see home delivery, people had no other chance to do home delivery, actually, because there was the strict lockdown. But comparing this with other Western European countries, there's one trend coming up in not only the last 2 years, it started earlier, but it's now growing again, especially now with the slight exit from the COVID and pandemic situation. This is click and collect. And click and collect was something people learned during the last 1.5 years, and the trend seems to continue. So basically, we will look later on as an example that you have prepared for Portugal. So now we'll tell you some details about that. But this is a typical example of this this evolution, and click and collect becomes, for some reasons, very interesting, especially in countries where you have different options of payment methods and other infrastructure related things. We will talk about this a little later, but generally spoken, in Western Europe, the home delivery is still the leading delivery option.
Okay, thank you. And the next country we have for Western Europe is the Netherlands. And we see that online cross-border is mainly redirected to China, Germany, and the UK. And according to you, what do you see the main characteristics that define the Western Europe region e-commerce market size?
I think, in terms of the size of the Western European markets, I think it is down to a number of factors, different spending habits in different regions and different countries. So, for example, in the UK, there is a very high experience of spending on credit, similar to the US, whereas maybe in Germany or in the Netherlands, it's more conservative in the way of spending with cash from debit cards, for example. So I think that's a big divergence in the way people make their purchases online, and does determine sort of where they buy from also. But I think that's probably one big element. The other is about language and being able to have that localized experience as well. So even if you are a foreign company or a company trying to sell into a new market, being able to tailor the content, tailor the experience for the consumers in that market, I think is a great way to try and sort of, if you like, penetrate that market a little bit more aggressively.
Okay.
Maybe just add to what he has just said. This slide in the Netherlands, the picture you see here, is a perfect mirror of two of the most important aspects with online shopping. So basically, China is price. Germany, for Netherlands, is speed of delivery. So, and what you see here typically is the growing market power of Chinese marketplaces, like Alibaba, AliExpress. So very, very famous, especially also in the Netherlands. And Germany on place 2. Simple reason, speed of delivery and convenience. So basically, you see perfectly two main aspects of delivery and customer experience reflected in this one slide with the example of the Netherlands.
Okay.
As another
Great.
interesting point here with the Netherlands, and my daughter used to live in the Netherlands, and it was a question of if you want to buy from bol.com in the Netherlands, and you buy from there, but if you want to buy from Amazon, it was not available in the Netherlands, so you bought it from Amazon in Germany and get it delivered to the Netherlands. So yeah.
Okay. Then we move to another region, Northern Europe, and this is the second largest region for number of e-shoppers in Europe, with 82% of e-shoppers. As a relatively stable market, it is not showing the huge growth rates of the likes of Eastern and Southern Europe. In Norway, 61% of e-shoppers buy clothing and footwear, followed by cosmetics and skincare and home electronics. Hi, Jess, you are the expert from the Northern Europe. So what are the main trends or threats you're currently seeing among consumers in Norway?
Well, I think the whole of Scandinavia has always had a very high percentage of online shoppers, and I think in particularly for Norway, we can see here with some of the numbers for clothing and footwear, generally relatively compared to the rest of Europe, low population density quite sparse as well. So being able to have access to a wide range of products, have them delivered to their homes or locally, and I'm assuming the convenience there would be a major benefit. But what we are seeing across Scandinavia is this sort of more outward-looking approach, starting to look out at how can the Scandinavian brands are often sold via department stores in other countries. I'm seeing more and more of the brands starting to go direct to the consumers across Europe and outside of Europe. So I think that's one of the changes that we're seeing within Scandinavia is the brands, the mono brands starting to look a lot more outward.
Okay, and Thomas, what are the trends you see in this region?
Like you just already said, so the region is very, very into e-shopping and online shopping also for years. So let's say in the entire European area, they were leading a long time in adopting this. And what you see here typically in the type of goods, what's interesting in other countries is that, especially maybe about Norway, is that during the last 2 years, especially when you see groceries here with 17%, this was a category of goods, a category of delivery and e-retailing that had much higher growth rates in other countries than, for example, in Norway or in the Nordic regions. And then the fun fact here is, and this is just an assumption, it depends on the type of food, how fresh and what you order online and what the typical habits are in this country. And but it's interesting to see in this case, and of course there should be analysis for the industry in special, but the growth rates for grocery shopping in other countries were much higher in the last 2 years, which is interesting.
Okay, thank you. Then we move to Central Europe region, and it actually shows a strong internet usage and e-shoppers rates. Hungary, as we can see from the slide, has a strong internet usage among age group of 35 and 44 years old, as well as its shoppers. Another country interesting in this region is Poland, and e-shoppers value information when shopping online, price clarity, and delivery price. Thomas, what variation have you noticed in the customer expectation in the different regions that we have in Europe?
It directly relates to the amount of cross-border e-commerce. So, especially when you look at the first two items in your stats and in your list, of course, there are good, clear information about the product. You have to imagine that online shopping means that you get some advice, and what happened, you don't have the physical experience in the store, you don't have the consultancy from the selling people in the store. So the better the content, the higher the conversion rate in this case, and therefore you see it reflected in the customer needs. It's important for shoppers. The second thing, also very interesting, is the total price and other fees and delivery, because people are quite uncertain about what do I pay in the end when I get the parcel to my door. This is especially interesting when it comes to cross-border e-commerce with countries involved where you have duties and taxes to be paid across borders. And therefore, it is very interesting and very good for people to see on the website already with, so we call it landed cost calculation. Customers and shoppers want to have the total price, including all duties and fees, before they hit the order button. And this is something which you see reflected in this slide very well.
Okay, it is true, and it is something that we are also facing with UK leaving Europe. So it is something we have seen, and mostly of us have experienced. And what do you think about Central Europe? So, what is your thought about this region? Do you see any trends coming along, or?
I would say from our side, it's been historically Central Europe has been a little bit of a light area of looking to invest in the experience management side of things. It is, like you said, it's possibly been a little bit more transactional in the past. We are starting to see more and more companies looking to start investing at increasing those conversion rates. The top item there about good, clean, clear information about the products or about the services. So trying to really provide much more information about products, I think, is certainly an area that's needs to be focused on to try and increase that customer confidence to go and purchase. And doing that with a little bit of more inspiration, a little bit more of the ability to try and entice the customers to make the commitment to spend online, I think is a trend we're starting to see, but it's really, I think, at the beginning in Central Europe.
Okay, thank you. And before moving on, I will just like to remind everyone to download the report if you want to know more about European e-commerce market. And if you have any comments or questions, you are more than welcome to drop us a note at research@retailx.net. Next region we are taking into consideration and actually analyzing is Eastern Europe. So this is a still developing region, and it has the smallest e-commerce market in Europe. However, the region has seen strong growth in e-shopper numbers. In Romania, as we see from the graph, the most used device to shop online is smartphone, followed by laptop and desktop PC. I think you are the expert in this. So Wisdom Mobile is the main device used for shopping. Why do you think it is so common in Central Europe, in Eastern Europe, sorry?
I think it's about accessibility. So, there is a cost implication of having lots of different devices, but generally most people are, have access to a smartphone and will be using a smartphone. Across Europe, we're seeing a far greater number of consumers using their phones now to make those purchases. And this is one of those areas where retailers, brands are looking, have been investing in this sort of mobile first type of approach, breaking the content down into its component parts and making sure that every element that is needed to facilitate conversion and transaction is available to the mobile user. And if you make it available through the smartphone to that mobile user, it will filter through, and you can make it look good on any of the other sort of digital devices that they choose to shop from. But certainly across Europe, smartphones are becoming, if not already the most used device, it's certainly getting there in almost every market.
Okay, and if some consumers are still concerned about using smartphone, what are the strategies that a company can implement to encourage people?
So it is around making sure that they have consistent experiences. So that doesn't mean you show all the information you show on the web, the laptop or the desktop PC to the mobile user, but it is making sure that all of the content, all of the experiential type of things, the merchandising, the banners, the carousels, the product information is all available in the same way with the same data to the mobile users as they are to the desktop users, so that there is no thought that they're having a completely different experience, that it's coming from a different site. For example, you need to have that consistency of brand experience. You need to have a consistency of journey, so if people are jumping between different systems, that that there is a confidence that the native app on their Android phone or iOS phone, for example, if you're going down that native app route, has the same experience, has the same content, leaves you at the same point as the main website does. So having that consistency is, I think, what brings up the confidence.
Okay, thank you. When it comes then to the last region we have in Europe, Southern Europe, is the second actually largest e-commerce market in Europe. Relatively low internet usage and e-shoppers percentage, as we saw at the beginning of our presentation, are actually indications of huge potential yet to be exploited. So there is still a lot space to grow in Southern Europe. As we see from the slide, most Greek shoppers prefer to buy from national sellers. Thomas, do you see this trend, or it is more a statistical trend? Because what we notice is that people really want to help and sustain in a way their local shops.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely right. But there's one different aspect which is critical for the success of cross-border e-commerce, and I think we heard it earlier from Ijas in the discussion. You have to be successful in foreign countries. Let's say the example of a German retailer who wants to be successful in Greece. Especially Greece is one very good example. You have to be localized with your content, payment methods, and customer experience. And then often you have the discussion in retailers, foreign retailers, how much do we invest in localization of our customer experience in the means of content, navigation, wording, payment methods, delivery methods. And to become successful also in Greece, you have to be aware of the fact that especially also in Greece, people tend to prefer local providers, local retailers, or at least a shop or an online experience that reflects local flavors. And then when you think about the size of the Greece market, a lot of companies are still thinking about, do we invest in all this localization for our German shop, for example, to expand to Greece? And this is a development which will take some time, but it's a hen of an egg problem, because without this investment and localized experience, as a German retailer, you will not be successful in Greece. So this is the current trend and the thinking and the considerations that retailers have.
Okay, really interesting. And the last country in our slides, it is Portugal. As you were mentioning at the very beginning, click and collect is the most delivery method offered by the top 100 Portuguese online stores. And Thomas, we see click and collecting gaining more and more importance throughout the whole Europe. Do you see this trend more relevant in some regions compared to others, or you see it the same?
No, it is different from region, or from, let's say, from country to country. And Portugal, to stay with this example, click on collect has two advantages for the shopper. The first is price, because you can save money on delivery, for example. It's not good for us because our business case is somehow different, but you can of course save money on delivery, and flexibility. And now looking at the other side of the coin, what does it mean for retailers? And when you look at countries which are still developing e-commerce in a certain way and to grow in e-commerce, click and collect means you do not need to invest in further infrastructure from a retailer's point of view. So if you have your branches and your stores already in place and you offer people to shop online and collect it from the store, you do not have to invest heavily in logistics infrastructure and partners and complexity and systems. There are a lot of aspects to be considered. And therefore, this click and collect model in Portugal is very, very interesting, especially in the last year when we talk about the 2020 report, the 21 trend, because a lot of smaller retailers, brands are jumping on the trend of e-commerce. And to do this very quickly and without heavy investment, it was the easiest thing to offer click and collect. And this is also reflected in this trend.
Okay, and since we hope to go back in shops quite early or just outside of our house, do you think click and collect will actually increase or decrease when people go back to shop in store?
At least it will remain on the level it is.
Okay.
So, because people found out that click and collect brings some flexibility. Like I said before, when you're driving home again from work, you can quickly collect it and you do not have to wait for 1 or 2 or 3 days of delivery. So the urgency aspect, I want to have it today. Yeah, this is reflected in click and collect. And therefore, I think people made the experience that both has its advantages. And therefore, I think that there will not be a very straightforward trend in more click and collect solutions, but I think it will not go down in the future, even if the shopping experience is back again and people can go back to high street shopping. But I expect it to remain on the level as it currently is.
Okay, thanks. And if people are going to shop more in store probably soon, what do you think retailers have to do to maintain their new e-shoppers?
So if they're also going to be coming in store, what we are seeing is a trend of changing a little bit about how the stores work and becoming more digital. So more projects around in-store kiosks. So having that endless aisle, that bigger catalog within store as well, with kiosks and with clienteling apps. So it's something we're still seeing more and more retailers talking about, or even having branded concessions in department stores, for example, or multi-brand stores.
Okay.
To add to that, there's another interesting aspect because when we talk about another delivery method, click and collect or home delivery as two examples, but there's something in between, which is ship from store. And a lot of retailers who have their stores on the high street tend to jump on the train of delivering the goods from the store directly, which brings another complexity in there because you have to maintain a proper quick pickup methodology so that the items get collected from the different stores. But this is something which is in between these two experiences from a customer point of view, and the ship from store is highly interesting for retailers just because of costs, because they do not have to maintain another fulfillment center or storage space. And this will be some of the trends that we will see in the next month and 2 years, this trend will rise definitely in different countries.
Okay, thanks. And being our presentation actually a preview of the report, we didn't include some sections that actually we cover during the report, such as sustainability and COVID-19. Speaking about sustainability, Thomas, how do you see this trend to develop in the future, or do you see any changes?
Yes, I see a change to by far more sustainability interest than we had before. And a couple of weeks ago, a magazine in Germany asked me, is ignoring sustainability initiatives for online retailers a proof of future bankruptcy? And I said, yes, which is a little bit provocative. Yes, absolutely. But what you see is, and we see it within our customer base, our customers, retailers, are proactively asking us for labels for their packages and for their parcels with a proof of sustainability on there. And because they realize that people and the shoppers are get more and more interested in this, and it makes a difference at the end of the day by choosing a supplier or a shop where you order. And this trend will not change anymore. This is ongoing, and I can only recommend to all retailers, at least now, to start thinking about their ambitions in sustainability.
Okay, and
I think, sorry, I just to jump on the back of that, I know that we may have covered this in another report as well, but we did see within particularly Northern Europe, the sustainability of the products and the services being offered by the retailers is a key consideration in customer decision making. So again, when we talk about presenting content and presenting product information clearly, being able to highlight that and showcase that on the product pages or on the site, the sustainability initiatives that the retailers are doing genuinely help increase conversions to at least to the Northern Europe at this stage, but you can see that as a trend across the remainder of Europe will be an important factor for purchasing decisions.
okay, and from the post-COVID-19 era, we hope soon, what will we keep as a learning point that we had during this period?
I think agility, being able to adapt, is probably the most important thing we have learned from the last 18 months. If you, it's not just a lockdown; it's the start-stop nature that we've had with these waves of lockdowns has given the rise to making sure that you have systems in place that teams can work collaboratively, teams can work remotely. And they can adapt to whatever is happening to make sure that, sometimes you're going to scale up your e-commerce initiatives and scale them back down again when people rush back to the shops as well. But being able to have the agility within the teams, having tools that provide agility, provide flexibility, are key to making sure that you can adapt to the constant change, whether it's COVID today or some other situation in the future. You need to be able to adapt quickly.
Okay, and what about your thoughts, Thomas?
I would say very generic, listen carefully to your customers, because my theory is who wins the game of multi-channel shopping wins the game at the end of the day, because the post-COVID area will be very much dominated by the flexibility for customers to have a physical shopping experience or use the convenience of online shopping. And the question is, how good as a retailer, how good do you connect these both worlds? And I think who will manage this best will best in class later on in the overall success.
Okay. Thank you for your time. To wrap up our presentation and our session today, I would like to hear 3 main key points of the European e-commerce market from both of you. So, if you want to start first.
3 key points. Okay, putting me on the spot. I think there is this growth in local companies looking more outwards. I think that's a common theme that we're seeing. So less focus on maybe the multi-brand retailers. The multi-brand retailers are going to have to add more value, if you like, to keep those consumers. So the department stores maybe having challenges, and then looking at different ways of doing it with more content, more curation of experiences. But the mono brands are really investing in looking outwards and talking about that agility, as I mentioned earlier, making sure that they have a direct to the consumer market that they can rely on should there be any disruptions in the sort of the retail market in the meantime. So I'd say that direct to consumer growth, that differentiation with a greater experience for the multi-brand retailer, and as I mentioned, agility and flexibility, making sure that the move to fast fashion and sort of faster moving product cycles, being able to adapt and bring some more energy to the experience the customers are feeling to try and compete with some of these more faster moving pure plays. So the retailers, the brands and the retailers are going to have to start adapting and changing content and changing experiences much more frequently.
Mhm.
Okay. And Thomas, your 3 main key points.
Let me put 3 main key points into one topic.
Okay.
There's one thing which happened in the last 1 and 2 years. The competition got very intense on the e-commerce pure player market because a lot of new players entered the market which come from the offline shopping world. And what you see, and just to mention one aspect, online marketing and lead generation, driving conversion got extremely expensive for online retailers. So there's a huge competition on the online ad market, and people were struggling with their margin and their success. And therefore, I can only say we are on the perfect point where you have to look across borders as a retailer, and not anymore overestimate the costs and investment you need to expand your business across borders, because this has become not cheap, but much more easier, especially with the learnings and developments in the last 2 years, which really speeded up, and there are solutions in place that can help. And because in this case, looking across borders may help to maintain margins and success and expand to new markets with a better audience, a bigger audience. And you see their main topics covered into one overall topic. But I think retailers now really should focus on looking over the border. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Our session has been really interesting. Thank you again for your insights. Please remind everyone to download our report to make sure to get it in the month of July. Here you have the link. If you have any questions, please drop us a note at research@retailx.net. Thank you again, Ijaz and Thomas. Your insights were really helpful. The research is continuing going along. So if you have any comments and if you want us to investigate any new topic, please again drop us a note. And thank you again for your time. Hope you all enjoy this session. So thank you again, Ijaz, Thomas. Bye. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.